The little girl burst into the office, tears streaking her cheeks, screaming words that froze everyone in place. "Mr. Sam, they beat my mom. She's dying." No one moved except the janitor, the man everyone ignored, but who was about to save a life. It was a busy Monday morning at Bright Tech Corporation, one of the city's most powerful and fast-paced tech companies. The building buzzed with energy as employees hurried through the gleaming glass lobby, their shoes clicking sharply against the marble floor. Laptops were tucked under arms, coffee cups gripped tightly in hands, and the air was filled with the low hum of conversation mixed with the beeping of elevators and ringing phones. To an outsider, it looked like any ordinary corporate morning, a world of ambition, deadlines, and polite smiles masking exhaustion. But in a single instant, the rhythm of that ordinary day shattered. The sound of small, hurried footsteps echoed through the hall, followed by the desperate voice of a child. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. A little girl, no older than 7, rushed through the entrance, her pink dress wrinkled, hair messy, and cheeks streaked with tears. She looked frightened, lost, and breathless, as if she had run miles without stopping. Her voice cracked with terror as she cried, "Mr. Sam, please. They hurt my mom. She's dying." The entire office froze. The receptionist dropped her pen. 2 managers standing near the glass door stared at each other in confusion. Even the security guard, who moments ago was scanning ID cards, took a step back, unsure of how to react. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, and tense. Everyone could hear the child's sobs echoing in the marble lobby. Then, from a corner near the janitor's closet, a man moved quickly. His name was Sam. To most people in the building, he was invisible, a quiet, middle-aged janitor who came early, left late, and never caused trouble. His uniform was always neatly pressed, though slightly faded. His face carried the calm weariness of someone who had seen too much in life but complained about none of it. Every morning, he pushed his cleaning cart through the halls with quiet dignity, greeting people with a nod that was rarely returned. But to one person in that massive building, Sam was more than the janitor. He was a friend. Little Lily Turner, the CEO's daughter, often waited in the lobby after school for her father, who was usually buried in meetings upstairs. While others ignored her presence, Sam always took a moment to talk to her. He'd tell her stories about kindness, courage, and how sometimes the people who seemed small could make the biggest difference. He'd make paper flowers from tissue napkins to cheer her up when she was lonely. Over time, she began to trust him deeply, calling him Mr. Sam with genuine affection. So when she ran into the building that morning, she didn't look for her father or the guards or the receptionists. She looked for Sam. Sam rushed forward, kneeling to meet her at eye level. His usually calm expression changed instantly into one of concern. "Lily, calm down," he said softly, his voice steady and warm. "Tell me what happened. Where's your mother?" Between sobs, Lily tried to explain. "Some men came to the house. They were yelling at Mom. I heard her scream. She called me and said to run, to come here, to find you." Then her voice, it stopped. "She's hurt, Mr. Sam. Please, you have to help her." Her tiny hands trembled as she clutched his sleeve. The look in her eyes, pure fear and trust, told him this was no childish exaggeration. Sam didn't waste a second. He gently placed his hands on her shoulders. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," he said firmly. "Now listen to me. I need you to stay calm. I'm going to help your mom." He stood up quickly, his eyes sharp with focus. Without even thinking about it, he grabbed his old brown jacket hanging near the closet and ran toward the exit. The security guard stepped forward in confusion. "Sir, you can't just leave. What's going on?" But Sam didn't stop. He turned briefly and said only one word, "Emergency," before disappearing through the glass doors. The office erupted into murmurs. No one could understand what had just happened. A few employees followed him outside, peering through the windows as he sped away on his old, worn-out motorbike parked near the side of the building. The engine roared to life, and in seconds he was gone, leaving behind a stunned silence and a trembling little girl who whispered, "Please hurry, Mr. Sam." As the city blurred past him, Sam's mind was racing. He knew exactly where the Turners lived. Lily often mentioned her home when she told stories about her parents. He also knew that if what she said was true, time was everything. The cool morning wind whipped against his face as he accelerated through traffic. His heartbeat was steady, his breathing controlled. Years of discipline had trained him for this. Because Sam was not just a janitor. Long before bright tech, before mops and cleaning carts, he had worn a different uniform. He had served as a paramedic and combat medic in the military. He had seen battlefields where chaos ruled, where one mistake could mean death. He had treated wounded soldiers under fire, using whatever he had around him, belts, torn fabric, even his own hands, to stop bleeding and save lives. But after losing his younger brother in a mission gone wrong, Sam had left that world behind. He had promised himself never to hold another dying person in his arms. He moved to the city, searching for peace. Working as a janitor gave him anonymity, a quiet life where no one asked about his past. Yet now, fate was dragging him back into the world he had once sworn to leave. As he rode through the streets, he replayed Lily's words. "They hurt my mom. She's dying." His hands gripped the handle tighter. He had seen death before, but this time it was personal. It was for the little girl who trusted him more than anyone. When he reached the Turner residence, the sight made his chest tighten. The front gate was open. The door was half broken, swinging slightly in the wind. The silence was eerie. He parked his bike and told Lily, who had insisted on coming along, to stay outside no matter what. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "I'll bring your mom back." He stepped inside cautiously. The living room was a mess. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, papers scattered everywhere. A faint groan came from the corner near the stairs. There she was, Mrs. Turner, lying on the floor, her breathing shallow, blood staining the carpet beneath her. Sam rushed to her side. He knelt down, quickly assessing her wounds. A deep cut near her ribs was still bleeding. She had bruises on her arms, and her pulse was faint but present. He tore a strip of cloth from his own sleeve, pressed it firmly on the wound, and used his belt to secure it tightly. Then, from the small medical pouch he always carried on his bike, he took out antiseptic, bandages, and a pressure dressing. His movements were fast, precise, and calm. No hesitation, no panic. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked gently. Her eyes fluttered open for a second. "Lily," she whispered weakly. "She's safe," Sam reassured her. "Don't talk. Just breathe. Help is on the way." With one hand, he called emergency services, giving them the address and injury details. His tone was professional, efficient. Within minutes, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. As he waited, Sam kept pressure on the wound, whispering words of reassurance. His mind was fully focused, counting her pulse, checking her breathing, making sure she stayed conscious. When the paramedics arrived, they paused in surprise. The man kneeling by the victim wasn't a bystander panicking for help. He was working like one of them, calm, trained, and efficient. "Who are you?" one of them asked, astonished by his skill. Sam simply replied, "Just someone who couldn't stand by and do nothing." They took over, lifting Mrs. Turner onto a stretcher. As they loaded her into the ambulance, Lily ran to Sam and hugged him tightly, crying against his chest. "You saved her, Mr. Sam. I knew you could." Sam gently patted her back, his expression softening. "She's going to be okay now," he said quietly, watching the ambulance speed away. And as he stood there under the pale morning sky, with his hands still stained with blood, the quiet janitor of Bright Tech Corporation knew his old life had found him again, not through war or duty, but through love, courage, and a little girl who believed in him. Sam sped through the crowded streets on his old motorbike, the cold morning wind cutting sharply against his face. Traffic was thick, cars honking impatiently, but he weaved between them with the focus and precision of someone who had done this under far worse conditions before. Behind him, little Lily clung tightly around his waist, her small arms trembling as tears soaked through his faded blue shirt. Her sobs mixed with the roar of the bike's engine, a haunting rhythm of fear and desperation. "Hold on, Lily," Sam said over his shoulder, his voice steady but urgent. "We'll get to your mom in time, I promise." He didn't know if she could hear him over the wind, but his tone alone seemed to calm her. Every second mattered now. His eyes darted between the road and the rearview mirror, scanning for police cars or blockages, his instincts working like a machine. Once a medic in war, he had rushed through burning villages and hostile zones for the wounded. This chaos wasn't new to him, but this time it felt heavier. This was no soldier waiting for rescue. This was a mother, and the daughter crying behind him had trusted him above all else. The cityscape thinned as they reached the outskirts, a quiet, wealthy neighborhood lined with tall trees and sprawling homes. He slowed as the familiar house came into view, the Turner residence. Normally immaculate, with trimmed hedges and shining windows, it now looked like the aftermath of a nightmare. The front gate hung open, one hinge bent. The door was cracked, half swinging in the wind. From where he stood, Sam could already sense something terrible had happened inside. "Lily," he said firmly but gently as he parked the bike, "listen to me. You need to stay outside, okay? No matter what you hear, don't come in until I tell you it's safe." Her lower lip quivered. "But Mr. Sam, He crouched down and placed his rough hand on her shoulder, his eyes kind yet serious. "I need you to be brave right now. The bravest girl I know. Can you do that for me?" She sniffled, then nodded, wiping her tears with her sleeve. "Okay, that's my girl," he said softly. Sam straightened and stepped toward the door. The moment he entered, a chill ran through him. The house smelled of blood and broken glass. Furniture was overturned, chairs on their sides, a lamp smashed near the staircase. Drawers were open, as if someone had been searching for something in a hurry. The silence inside was deafening, broken only by the faint buzzing of a ceiling light flickering above. His eyes scanned the room, and then he saw her. Mrs. Turner lay sprawled on the marble floor, her dress torn, her skin pale as chalk. A dark stain spread beneath her, fresh blood glistening in the light. She was gasping weakly, her eyes half open, the faintest rise and fall of her chest showing she was still alive, but barely. Sam's heart clenched, but his mind shifted instantly into medic mode. He didn't hesitate. He rushed to her side, kneeling beside her. "Mrs. Turner, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice calm and controlled. Her eyes flickered, barely focusing on him. Her lips parted, whispering something he could barely catch. "Lily, she's safe," Sam assured her quickly. "She's outside. You just need to stay with me, all right? You're not going anywhere today." He quickly assessed the wound, a deep cut along her side, possibly from a knife or glass shard. There were bruises along her neck and arms, signs of struggle. Whoever had done this wanted to hurt her badly. Sam unzipped the small medical pouch he always kept on his bike, an old, worn bag with faded army insignia. It was the only reminder of his past he had never discarded. Inside were the essentials: gauze, antiseptic, bandages, and a small first aid kit he had restocked himself. His hands moved with the precision of muscle memory. He pressed clean gauze against the wound to stop the bleeding. The crimson spread instantly, but he didn't flinch. He tore a strip of his own shirt and tied it tightly around her waist, improvising a pressure bandage. Then he elevated her side slightly to slow the blood flow. He spoke as he worked, keeping her conscious. "You're strong, ma'am. You gotta fight a little longer, all right? Your daughter needs you." Mrs. Turner's breathing hitched. Her hand weakly reached out, clutching his wrist. You're the janitor," she whispered faintly. Sam smiled faintly. "Not today," he said. He checked her pulse, faint but steady. Her pupils reacted sluggishly, but she was still fighting. He opened a small bottle of antiseptic and poured it over the wound, biting his lip as she flinched in pain. "Sorry, ma'am. I know it stings, but we can't let it get infected." Meanwhile, outside, Lily stood near the bike, hugging her knees. She could see flashes of movement inside through the doorway. The silhouette of Sam kneeling, his hands working quickly. She wanted to run in to see her mother, but she remembered his words and stayed still, trembling. The sound of distant sirens gave her a glimmer of hope. Inside, Sam took out his phone and dialed emergency services with one hand, keeping pressure on the wound with the other. "Yes, this is 27 Brookfield Lane," he said quickly. "Female, mid-30s, severe laceration and possible internal bleeding. Conscious but fading. Send paramedics immediately." The operator's voice came through the speaker. "Help is on the way, sir. Are you trained to give first aid?" "More than that," Sam replied. "Just hurry." He hung up and returned his full attention to Mrs. Turner. Her breathing was slowing, eyes fluttering shut. "Stay with me, ma'am," he whispered. "Don't you dare give up now." He began checking her airway and pulse again, adjusting her head slightly to keep her breathing unobstructed. His shirt was soaked in blood, but he didn't care. The only thing that mattered was keeping her alive until help arrived. Minutes felt like hours. He could hear the sirens growing louder now, their echoes bouncing off the quiet neighborhood. "Hang in there," he murmured, glancing toward the window. "You're almost safe." Mrs. Turner's eyes opened one last time, weak but full of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. He pressed her hand gently. "Save your strength. You can thank me when you're walking out of here." The door burst open, and two paramedics rushed inside, carrying their equipment. They froze when they saw the scene. The floor covered in blood, the wounded woman bandaged with professional precision, and a man in a janitor's uniform calmly monitoring her vitals. "Who are you?" one of them asked in disbelief as they knelt beside him. Sam moved back to give them space. "Just someone who couldn't ignore a cry for help," he said quietly, wiping sweat from his brow. The paramedic looked at his work. Perfect pressure dressing, correct position, controlled bleeding. "You did everything right," he said, amazed. "You might have saved her life." Sam gave a small nod and stepped aside as they lifted Mrs. Turner onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her out, Lily ran toward them, crying out, "Mom." Sam caught her before she could get too close and knelt down, holding her shoulders. "She's okay, Lily. She's going to be fine. They're taking her to the hospital now." The little girl looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "You saved her, didn't you?" Sam smiled softly, though exhaustion was written all over his face. "I just help her hold on a little longer. The doctors will take care of the rest." The ambulance doors closed, flashing red and blue lights reflecting in Sam's tired eyes. As the vehicle sped away, he stood there in silence, his heart still racing. For a moment, he let out a shaky breath and looked up at the gray sky above. The war he thought he had left behind had found him again, but this time it wasn't about soldiers or battles. It was about love, innocence, and a promise to a little girl who believed in him more than anyone else. He turned toward Lily, who was still watching the road where the ambulance disappeared. Sam placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Come on, kiddo," he said quietly. "Let's get you to your dad." And as they walked away from the blood-stained house, the morning sun broke through the clouds, painting the world in a faint glow of hope, reminding Sam that sometimes being a hero isn't about rank or medals. It's about showing up when someone needs you most. Back at Bright Tech Corporation, chaos rippled through the building as the shocking news reached the upper floors. It began with whispers, an employee saying the CEO's wife had been attacked. Within minutes, the rumors spread like wildfire, sending nervous glances and hushed conversations across the office. Some couldn't believe it. Others felt genuine fear. Inside his sleek corner office on the top floor, Mr. Henry Turner, the company's CEO, stood frozen as his assistant relayed the call. His phone nearly slipped from his hand. "Sir, it's your wife," the assistant stammered. "She's in the hospital. They said she was attacked, but she's alive. Someone found her and got her help in time." Henry's face drained of color. His chair screeched backward as he stood, his heart pounding in his chest. For a few seconds, his mind couldn't process it. Attacked? How? Why? He and his wife, Emily, had been living separately for months, but he had never imagined something like this. Without a word, he grabbed his car keys and bolted from the office. Employees stood aside as their usually composed, intimidating boss sprinted through the hallway with panic written all over his face. The elevator ride felt endless. When he finally reached the parking lot, he nearly dropped his keys from trembling hands before starting the engine. The drive to the hospital was a blur. His mind swirled with guilt, anger, and fear. He had been too busy with work, too caught up in meetings and deals to notice the growing threats around his family. And now, his wife was fighting for her life. When he burst through the hospital doors, he demanded answers. "Emily Turner, where is she?" The nurse at the counter looked startled, but pointed toward the emergency wing. "She's in surgery, sir, but the man who brought her in is right over there." Henry turned and froze. Sitting quietly on a plastic chair outside the emergency room was Sam, the janitor from Bright Tech. His gray uniform was smeared with blood, his hands stained crimson, his face pale with exhaustion. His jacket was torn at the sleeve, and his eyes, though calm, were shadowed with fatigue. Henry's confusion twisted into disbelief, then anger. "What the hell happened?" he demanded, storming toward him. "And what are you doing here, Sam?" Sam stood slowly, his expression steady but respectful. "Sir," he said, his voice low, "your wife was attacked at her home. Your daughter came to the office looking for help. I went there as fast as I could. I found Mrs. Turner injured and gave her emergency treatment until the ambulance arrived." Henry's brows furrowed, anger flaring. You're a janitor. How could you possibly? What were you even doing near my family?" Before Sam could respond, the double doors to the emergency room swung open. A doctor, still wearing surgical gloves, approached quickly. "Mr. Turner?" he asked. Henry turned immediately. "Yes, that's me. How is she? How's my wife?" "She's stable now," the doctor said, his voice firm but calm. "She lost a lot of blood, but she's going to survive." Henry exhaled sharply, relief flooding his face. But before he could speak, the doctor continued, glancing at Sam. "Whoever found her and gave her first aid saved her life. If she had lost any more blood, she wouldn't have made it to the hospital." The words hung in the air. Henry blinked, looking from the doctor to Sam. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The realization hit him like a wave. This quiet, humble man, the one he'd passed in the halls without even noticing, had just saved his wife's life. The doctor nodded respectfully to Sam before returning inside. Nurses passed by, whispering about the man covered in blood who'd helped the CEO's wife. Henry just stood there, his chest tightening with something unfamiliar, gratitude mixed with shame. At that moment, Lily came running down the corridor, guided by a nurse. Her small face lit up when she saw Sam sitting on the bench. She dashed toward him, ignoring her father completely, and threw her arms around his neck. "You saved her!" she cried, her little voice trembling but full of relief. "I knew you could. I told everyone you would." Sam smiled faintly, gently patting her back. "Your mom's a fighter," he said softly. "She's gonna be fine, Lily." Henry watched silently, his throat tight. His daughter clung to a man he had barely noticed before, the same man he'd probably never even thanked properly for his years of service. Finally, he cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "Sam," he began slowly. Sam turned, meeting his eyes. Henry hesitated. He wanted to thank him, to say something meaningful, but pride got in the way. He was a man who led a company worth billions, someone who commanded respect wherever he went. He didn't know how to express gratitude to someone society often overlooked. "Thank you," he muttered finally, his tone restrained. "But I'll handle it from here." Sam nodded respectfully, as if he'd expected nothing more. "Of course, sir. I'm just glad she's safe." He gently removed Lily's arms from around his neck and gave her a reassuring smile. "Your mom needs you now, okay? Go be with her." Lily's eyes filled with tears again. "Will you come see her too?" Sam hesitated, glancing toward Henry. "Maybe another time, sweetheart." The girl's expression fell slightly, but she nodded. As Sam turned to leave, Henry watched him go. His shoes squeaked faintly against the hospital floor, each step heavy but humble. The other staff moved aside for him, some nodding with quiet respect. For the first time, Henry truly saw him, not as a janitor, not as an employee, but as a man of courage and skill. Henry sat down on one of the benches, rubbing his forehead. His mind was spinning. He thought of how many times he had walked past Sam in the office lobby without acknowledgement. How many times he had seen him cleaning up after meetings, invisible in plain sight. He thought of Lily, his daughter, running not to him, but to the janitor when she was terrified. It stung. "Mr. Turner?" The nurse interrupted his thoughts. "You can see your wife now. She's still weak but awake." Henry stood immediately and walked into the dimly lit hospital room. Emily lay in bed, pale but conscious, tubes attached to her arm. When she saw him, her lips trembled into a weak smile. "You came," she whispered. "Of course," he said softly, sitting beside her. "How are you feeling?" She took a shaky breath. "Alive, thanks to him." Henry blinked. "You mean Sam?" She nodded slowly. "He found me. He stopped the bleeding. He didn't panic. He stayed with me until help came. Henry, that man saved my life." Henry swallowed hard, guilt settling deep in his chest. "I didn't even know he was capable of that. You thought he was just a janitor," she finished gently. "But he's more than that. Sometimes people hide painful pasts behind simple jobs. Maybe he just wanted peace." Henry sat there silently, his thoughts heavy. He couldn't deny it anymore. The man he had underestimated had done something extraordinary. Hours later, when Lily finally fell asleep beside her mother's bed, Henry stepped into the hallway. The moonlight streamed through the hospital window, and he found himself whispering into the quiet corridor, "I owe that man everything." Sam was gone by then, back to the life he preferred, quiet and unseen. But what he left behind wasn't just gratitude. He had planted something in Henry Turner's heart, a realization that true worth isn't measured by titles or paychecks, but by the courage to act when it matters most. And though Henry wouldn't admit it aloud, deep down he knew he'd never look at that janitor the same way again. A few days later, the heavy scent of antiseptic still hung in the hospital room. But this time, there was a faint warmth in the air, one that came from relief rather than fear. Mrs. Emily Turner slowly opened her eyes, blinking against the soft light filtering through the curtains. Her body was weak, but her spirit was steady. The first face she saw was her daughter's, Lily, curled up beside her on the bed, her small hand wrapped around her mother's arm. "Lily," she whispered hoarsely, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's forehead. Lily stirred and immediately shot up, eyes wide with joy. "Mom, you're awake," she cried, tears instantly filling her eyes. "You scared me." Emily smiled weakly and pulled her daughter close. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm here now." Moments later, the door opened, and Henry Turner walked in. For once, the usually confident Soul looked humble, his suit wrinkled, his face drawn with sleepless nights. He stood quietly for a moment, simply watching them before stepping closer. "You look better," he said softly. Emily nodded, her gaze gentle but knowing. "Better than before, yes." She paused, then added quietly, "You came every day?" He nodded, pulling up a chair beside her. "I couldn't stay away." For a few minutes, silence filled the room, comforting, healing silence. Then, Emily took a deep breath, her expression growing serious. "Henry, the police came by earlier. They caught the men who did this." Henry's jaw tightened. "I heard. They were hired, weren't they?" "Yes," she said. "Rival business agents. They wanted to scare me into backing out of the community development project I was leading. They thought I was alone that night." Henry clenched his fists, guilt washing over him. "You shouldn't have had to face that alone." Emily gave him a faint smile. "I wasn't alone. Someone found me. Someone you know." Henry looked up, confused. "You mean Sam?" Emily nodded slowly. "He saved me, Henry. I was slipping in and out of consciousness, but I remember everything. He worked fast, like someone who's done it 1,000 times. His hands didn't shake, not even once." Henry frowned slightly. He said he had some medical training, but... "No," Emily interrupted gently, "not some. I saw his tattoo when he tore his sleeve to make a bandage. It's a special forces medical insignia. He's not just a janitor, Henry. He's a decorated war medic." Henry froze. The word struck him harder than he expected. "A war medic?" Emily nodded again. "I asked the nurse to confirm it later. His full name is Samuel Carter, former medic for the 5th Special Forces Group. He served overseas for years before retiring. There are even records of him receiving commendations for bravery under fire." Henry sat back, speechless. His mind flashed through every time he had seen Sam quietly sweeping the floors, fixing small things around the office, never drawing attention to himself. All this time, a man who had once saved soldiers on battlefields had been mopping the floors of his building without anyone noticing. "I treated him like," Henry muttered under his breath, guilt etching deeper lines into his face. "I never even said good morning to him." Emily reached out and placed a weak hand over his. "Maybe you still can," she said softly. "He didn't do it for gratitude, but you can still do what's right." Henry nodded slowly, his mind already racing. That evening, as he drove back to Bright Tech headquarters, the city lights blurred outside his car window. He barely noticed the passing traffic. His thoughts were consumed by one thing: how make things right, not just with Sam, but with everyone he'd overlooked. When he arrived at the building, it was after hours. Most employees had already left, but the cleaning crew was still there. Sam, as usual, was among them, quiet, efficient, sweeping the marble lobby floor. Henry stood in the doorway for a few seconds, just watching. Sam noticed him, but said nothing, simply nodding politely and continuing his work. "Sam," Henry finally said, his voice breaking the silence. Sam turned, surprised to see his boss there so late. "Sir, is everything all right?" Henry hesitated, then said, "Can you come to the conference room tomorrow morning at 9? I need you there." Sam frowned slightly, but nodded. "Of course, sir." The next morning, Bright Tech buzzed with confusion. Word had spread that Mr. Turner had called an emergency staff meeting, the first in years. Every employee filled the large conference hall, whispering and speculating. Department heads, secretaries, engineers, interns, everyone was there. And at the very back of the room stood Sam Carter, in his gray uniform, mop still in hand. Henry walked to the podium. His usual air of authority was still there, but something had changed. His tone was softer, his posture less rigid. He looked around at the faces before him, then began. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice echoing slightly. "I called this meeting for one reason, to talk about something we often forget in this company. People." The room went silent. He continued, "We live in a world that measures worth by titles, paychecks, and corner offices. But today, I was reminded that the most valuable people aren't always the ones with fancy titles or degrees. Sometimes, they're the ones quietly holding everything together while no one notices." He paused, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Sam. "Mr. Sam Carter," he said clearly. The room turned. Everyone's eyes followed his gaze. Sam froze, startled to be singled out. Henry stepped down from the podium and walked toward him. "For those who don't know," Henry said, "a few days ago, my wife was attacked. She nearly died. And the man standing here, our janitor, was the one who found her, treated her, and saved her life before the ambulance arrived." A stunned silence filled the room. Henry continued, his voice thick with emotion. "What most of you don't know is that Sam isn't just a janitor. He's a former war medic, a decorated member of the Special Forces who once risked his life to save others on the battlefield. And he's been working here quietly, never mentioning it, never asking for anything." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Henry turned to face Sam directly. "Sam, I owe you more than words can express. But I also realized something. If I could overlook someone like you, how many other incredible people might we be ignoring here at Bright Tech?" Sam looked overwhelmed, shifting uneasily as all eyes remained on him. "Sir, I didn't do it for recognition. I just did what anyone should do." Henry smiled faintly. "That's exactly why you deserve it." He turned back to the employees and said, "From this day forward, Sam Carter will no longer serve as our janitor. Instead, he will lead our new employee emergency response program, a department designed to train every Bright Tech member in first aid, crisis response, and workplace safety. He's the best man for the job, and I trust him completely." The room erupted in applause. Some people stood, clapping enthusiastically. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Even the most senior executives, usually too proud to show emotion, joined in. Sam stood still for a moment, stunned. The sound of applause washed over him like a wave. For a brief second, memories flashed in his mind. Battlefields, smoke, soldiers calling for help, and the silence that came after every mission. Then he looked up, smiling softly, humility still in his eyes. "Thank you, sir," he said quietly. "I'll do my best." Henry nodded, his expression full of respect. "I know you will, Sam." As the meeting ended, people crowded around Sam, patting his back, shaking his hand, asking him about his experience. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. For the first time, the quiet man in the gray uniform stood tall, not because of rank or fame, but because of who he was. And as Henry watched from across the room, he realized something profound. Heroes don't always wear suits or uniforms. Sometimes they carry mops, walk quietly through hallways, and show up when no one else will. That day, Bright Tech changed, not just as a company, but as a community. And Sam Carter? He didn't just earn a new title. He earned something far greater: respect, purpose, and a second chance at belonging. Weeks passed like the slow unfolding of a gentle sunrise over Bright Tech Corporation. The company that once thrived on competition and deadlines now pulsed with something new: heart. Sam Carter's story had spread throughout the entire building. What began as whispers in the hallways had turned into an inspiration that touched everyone, from the highest-ranking executive to the newest intern. For the first time, people began to look beyond job titles, seeing one another as human beings rather than positions on an organizational chart. It all started when Henry Turner, true to his word, gave Sam full authority to design and lead the Employee Emergency Response Program. Sam didn't take the title lightly. Within days, he had drawn up detailed training schedules, safety manuals, and first aid awareness sessions. The board members had been skeptical at first. After all, what could a former janitor teach a building full of educated professionals? But that doubt didn't last long. During the first training session, Sam demonstrated how to perform CPR, treat burns, and stabilize fractures with calm precision. He spoke with such clarity and warmth that even the most distracted employees leaned forward, eager to learn. When he recounted real stories from his years as a field medic, how small, quick actions had saved soldiers' lives, no one looked away. It wasn't a lecture. It was a revelation. Soon, Sam became the face of a cultural shift at Bright Tech. First aid stations were installed on every floor, emergency drills were conducted monthly, and awareness drives were held regularly. Employees began volunteering for community outreach programs, offering medical camps in nearby schools and neighborhoods. Every event was led by Sam, not as a boss barking orders, but as a mentor guiding others with humility. He made everyone feel capable, whether they were sweeping the floors or managing million-dollar projects. And every time someone asked how he stayed so grounded after everything he'd achieved, Sam would simply smile and say, "Because the moment I forget where I came from, I stop understanding where I'm going." Lily, the little girl whose desperate cry had started it all, was never far from his side. She often visited Bright Tech after school, skipping down the hallways in her pink backpack, greeting everyone cheerfully. "Uncle Sam," she would call, running straight into his open arms. He'd chuckle softly, pretending to struggle under her hug. "You've gotten heavier, kiddo. Must be all those cookies your mom's been baking." Lily would laugh and pull out drawings she'd made, stick figures of her mom, dad, and Uncle Sam, all holding hands. One picture, which she proudly taped on the break room wall, had a gold crayon star on Sam's shirt and the words, "My hero." It made everyone smile whenever they passed by. Mrs. Turner, fully recovered now, often joined them. She had resumed her social work, but never forgot what Sam had done for her. "You didn't just save my life," she once told him. "You brought my family back together." Henry, too, was a changed man. The once distant CEO who ruled with spreadsheets and policies had transformed into a leader who listened, who cared, and who finally understood the human side of his empire. He made it a point to walk through every department daily, shaking hands, asking names, and saying something he had rarely said before: "Thank you." He realized that leadership wasn't about power, it was about service. Watching Sam, he understood that true respect can't be demanded. It's earned through humility and compassion. One afternoon, weeks after everything had settled, the golden glow of sunset filtered through the wide glass windows of Bright Tech's lobby. The office was quieter than usual. Most employees had already left. The soft hum of the air conditioner mixed with the rhythmic squeak of a mop gliding across the marble floor. There was Sam, back in his simple gray uniform, cleaning near the entrance just like old times. Henry stepped out of the elevator, holding his briefcase. He stopped when he saw Sam and smiled faintly. "You still cleaning floors, Sam?" Sam looked up, that same gentle smile crossing his face. "Yes, sir. Old habits die hard." Henry shook his head slightly. "You know, you don't have to anymore. You got an office upstairs now, a team, a title, a department." Sam chuckled softly and wrung out the mop. "I know, sir, but I like doing this sometimes. It keeps me grounded. Helping people, no matter how small the job, will always be my duty." Henry stood there for a moment, letting those words sink in. There was something deeply humbling about them. He had spent years climbing to the top, chasing power, wealth, and recognition. But this man, with no interest in any of it, possessed a peace that Henry had never known. "You're a rare man, Sam," Henry said finally. "I wish I'd seen it sooner." Sam smiled. "Sometimes people have to go through storms to learn what matters, sir. You learned. That's what counts." Henry extended his hand. "Thank you for saving my family and for saving me in a different way." Sam shook it firmly. "You'd have done the same, sir." As Henry walked away, he turned back once more. The sun had dipped low, casting long, golden shadows through the glass doors. Sam's silhouette moved slowly, methodically, the mop gliding across the floor with quiet dignity. At that exact moment, Lily's laughter echoed down the hallway. She came running toward them, holding a small paper airplane. "Uncle Sam, Daddy, look what I made." Henry caught her mid-run, lifting her into his arms. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," he said. "Show Uncle Sam." She handed it to Sam, grinning. "It's a superhero plane. You're the pilot." Sam laughed, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Well, I'll fly it with pride, young lady." Mrs. Turner appeared from the elevator, smiling at the scene before her, her daughter giggling, her husband finally at peace, and the man who had changed everything standing humbly beside them. For a long moment, no one spoke. There was no need to. The air itself seemed filled with warmth, forgiveness, and gratitude. Outside, the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, as if mirroring the light that now lived within every heart in that building. Henry looked at Sam once more. "You know," he said quietly, "you've done more for this company than anyone else ever has. Not with inventions or profits, but with humanity." Sam gave a small nod. "Sometimes, sir, saving one life is worth more than saving $1 million. Henry smiled. "You're right, and I'll never forget that." As the family walked out together, Lily skipped ahead, her laughter echoing down the marble corridor. Sam watched them go, feeling a deep sense of peace. For years, he had carried the weight of old memories, losses from the battlefield, faces he couldn't save. But now, standing in the fading glow of sunset, he realized something profound. He had finally saved a family, and in doing so, he had healed himself. He picked up his mop again, humming softly. The floor gleamed under the golden light, reflecting a quiet kind of heroism, one that needed no medals, no applause, and no fame. Somewhere behind him, Lily's voice rang out one last time before the elevator doors closed. "Bye, Uncle Sam. You're our hero forever." And as the echoes of her laughter faded, the humble janitor smiled. A man who had once saved lives in war, now saving hearts in peace. Because true greatness, he knew, didn't shout. It simply shone. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.